Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. They don't call this the graveyard shift for nothing, so I'm going to shake this baby up before we get going. So in the first instance, I'm going to, in fact, invite my panellists straight up and get them seated, and then in a moment I'm going to introduce them to you. But before we do that, and as a part of that process, so if I can get my panellists to come up, and I'll get you seated. So Fraser and I from TI. Fraser, would you like to come up? Wherever you are. Here he is. Have a seat, mate. Geoff Meyer from the Ironman group. David Neal from Mitchell Grass Retreat. And Amy Gash from Lady Elliot Island Eco Resort. Now, I've got 5 crackingly great panellists this afternoon, and I need a little bit of energy before we get going. So what we're going to do, now I don't know, Trish, I don't know about sex, but I felt like a scotch after lunch. So what I want you all to do, please, is just be upstanding. We'll follow on from where we started this morning, please, including my panellists. Okay, so I've got 5 sons. Some time ago, they suggested to me that I needed to do some Tai Chi, something about finding a life, which I never actually found. And what we're going to do now is just 2 very simple limb bringing up exercises. And why we do this is just to get some of those muscles going and a bit of oxygen into our bodies. And I might also add that my style of Kung Fu, is more attuned to Kung Fu Panda than it is to the real master. But we'll start with just 2 things. Just take your legs apart and get those legs just moving a little bit like that. So it's all about stance, posture. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is just take your shoulders back. We'll just go back 4 times. How good does that feel already? 2, 3, 4, and then very gently, just head down. Just do 4 of these and back, very gently. 3, 4, and now to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. How about that? That's a good start. Now we're going to do some breathing exercises. Remember 2 years ago we couldn't breathe in an audience? Well, we're going to do breathing. So in this instance, essentially I'll do the first one and we'll do 4 together. Hands go down. And in Tai Chi, you breathe in. You normally get to here, and if you're a Tai Chi person, you go down, but we're going to go to Buzz Lightyear next. So we're going to go up to the start, reach for the stars, and just hold. And arms down. Okay, we're going to do 3 of those. Breathing in, and up, and gently down. Feel better already. Next one, breathe in, reach for the stars, and down, and 1 more. Breathe in, reach for the stars, and down. Thank you. Let's get cracking. So just to provide some context. So I'm sure you will all agree that post-COVID, the world changed. We've spoken about it over the last 2 days. People are much more aware, your visitors are much more about health, well-being and sustainability. And we've also seen the emergence of the conscious traveller. But it'd be fair to say we've been monitoring the conscious traveller for some period of time. In addition, we now have a global call to action to address climate change. We'll talk a little bit about that in the panel, and to build a healthier planet for future generations. And particularly this afternoon, we have an opportunity about where travel and tourism provides leadership in the context of how we can deliver more sustainable outcomes for the destinations in which we service. We've heard about this morning, Tourism 2032 provides a very clear framework for the next 10 years. And as a part of that framework, sustainability is identified as one of the catalysts for change. So what does success look like? We're going to put this to the panel in a moment. Does it mean we're going to see more sustainable and regenerative tourism practices in place? Are we going to become a leader in sustainable and ecotourism experiences? You know, it's not that long ago we were a leader in ecotourism experiences. So we've got an opportunity to get back up. Will we have a clear pathway towards net zero emissions? So let me walk you through my panel. Now, I'll apologise to them now because if I had to read the CVs, I'd be here for the next 30 minutes. So just briefly, Fraser and I, Torres Strait Island operator, but you know what? This man's a community and tourism leader. Really looking forward to our discussion this afternoon. He's also a traditional owner of Massick Island, as well as a former councillor of the Regional Council. Fraser's been involved in numerous tourism activities across Torres Strait, has a long track record of public service, including as a member of the board of the Queensland Health Service, amongst many other things. Geoff Myers, Managing Director, Ironman Group Oceania. After competing in his first triathlon event in 1986, you must have been 10 at that stage, Geoff. He caught the thrill of the events world and has always had some level of involvement since. Now, with over 20 years of event experience, Geoff has worked extensively across the Asia Pacific with a 5-year stint in Singapore, now back home. Geoff's team at Ironman Oceania are responsible for delivering over 28 events each year. David Neal, great to meet you, David. I've heard so much about you. Luxury glamping retreat was a dream for the making for David and his partner, Tanya. Is Tanya here today? Where are you, Tanya? Stand up for me. Well done. We'll come some questions to you later on, I think. They wanted to create an authentic luxury outback experience of a low impact on the environment. And in true testament to their belief in this new venture, Mitchell Grass Retreat opened in 2020, mid-pandemic, as you do. Inundated with calls from luxury travel agents over this time, their luxury eco-friendly accommodation concept proved a hit. So well done. The next young lady won't need any introduction to most of you in the audience. Amy Gash, General Manager Brand and Strategy, Lady Elliot Island Eco Resort. Amy was born and raised on the Gold Coast. Her family is well known to you all, the current leaseholders, and I love this word, custodians of Lady Elliot Island Eco Resort, and owner-operators of the Gold Coast-based air company, Sea Air Pacific. Since graduating from university with a hotel and tourism management, she's worked in all facets of the business, notably obtaining her pilot's license in 2019. But most significantly, she was awarded the Young Achiever Award for outstanding contribution to the Queensland tourism industry. And this year, just recently, won the Environmental Warriors category for Gold Coast Women of the Year Awards. Well done. So I'm going to start with my Eco Warrior. So we've talked about the whole context of the conscious traveller. I'm just really interested to understand, are your visitors to the island more mindful of sustainable and travel experiences? What are they expecting from their holiday and arriving on the island?
Yeah, great question. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today on this panel. I really hope that I can provide a little bit of insight into the sustainability of Lady Elliot Island. That is a definite yes. When our guests do travel to Lady Elliot Island, they have already a very eco-conscious mindset when travelling to the island, and they have pretty good knowledge base and understanding of best practices. So they do definitely hold us accountable, and they do definitely have very high expectations that their holiday is going to be low impact. So where possible on the island, for those that may not necessarily have that mindset already, and they're on their learning journeys of sustainability, we embed sustainability into our everyday life on Lady Elliot. So we have touch points throughout the resort that like to tell those messages of sustainability and environmental conscious practices and things like that for those guests to learn along the way. And we definitely like to open a two-way conversation for our guests. So it's not just us telling them. We can learn a lot from what they have to say as well. So we like to open that conversation, and a number of the initiatives that we've implemented on the island over many years have come from the guests bringing those ideas to the island.
Is there a wow factor? So if I've been to the island, do they come up to you and say, this is the thing that stood out for me in my visit?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure if anyone here has been to Lady Elliot. It's a very, very special place on the southern end of the Great Barrier Reef. And there are 3 ways that you can actually see the Great Barrier Reef for yourself. It can be from the air, it can be on the water through a glass-bottom boat, and it can be underneath the water. And Lady Elliot is really special because you can see it from all of those ways.
Any ways then stands out to them? Any quotes that that have come up recently from your visitors?
That's a great question. I did prepare something earlier. So we do get these post surveys that I guess a lot of people in the room would do that our guests fill out following their travel. And we had one come through just yesterday morning, and I thought it was quite relevant for the panel, and it said, I think that after this trip, I will try to look for more eco-friendly destinations and accommodations such as Lady Elliot Island. I really like that it is possible to visit and experience nature with low impact, whilst at the same time being respectful with nature. So that, to me, embeds everything that we do and means absolutely the world to us.
Fantastic. So speaking of which, David, visitors to your Mitchell Grass retreat, are they interested in learning about the outback and your sustainability initiatives, or are they just after a short break away from home?
Stewart, thank you. We have got a fair cross-section of people that obviously travel. We have those that are looking for a sort of more eco-friendly and getting back to nature experience. We have those that come already, they'll save their plastic bottles, they'll use our container for exchange bins. We also have those that, they want to come and settle back into the environment, bird watchers, all sorts of people. We'll have people that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and they'll head down to the river, looking for the water birds and things like that, moving and nesting, and then, get up for a sunset or sunrise, and to those that come basically because the outback has been on their bucket list for some time and they get to do it, but in saying that, most of them end up being encompassed by our environment and the sunsets and the stars, and I think they all get a little bit closer to nature in doing it.
So it's not just the luxury bit, so they're happy to get down and dirty and embrace the outback?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We'll have people that'll be off, walking prior to daylight, because you can now, because it's got a bit drier again. You can get right to the river in a couple of walking paths that we've got, and they'll get down and dirty, and they'll kangaroos are normally nocturnal, so they'll catch them as they're sort of going back to lay under a shady tree.
I've got to come out and visit, so we'll talk about this.
I'm sure.
Moving on to then, I guess, events. Events do play a significant role in regional Queensland. The Ironman events, such as the Noosa Tri, I've been, not that you'd ever recognise it, to a try for the last 15 years. I don't know where I'm going wrong. How do you go about delivering a sustainable event with so many participants?
Basically, the participants demand it. Sustainability for us is sort of we either live or we die by sustainability on the broader sense. Our participants demand it, our community demand it, and our governments demand it. Now, if you break up sort of sustainability into the cores, we bring in Noosa Tri, for example, there's about 100,000 bed nights that come into town. So that's a lot of people that come into town. There is some inconvenience with the crowds that are there. We close roads and all those kind of things. So if we're not giving back to the community as well as the athletes and as well as our stakeholders, the welcome mat might be pulled from underneath us. So if you break it down into sort of sustainability being economic, now Noosa Tri has about a $30 million economic injection into that weekend. So that keeps all the tourism bodies very happy. From a social point of view, we raised 1.2 million this year and still counting, because it was only a couple of weeks ago, for charities. So that is a good thing from a community perspective. Noosa Tri is just not just a try either. It's sort of 10 sporting events and 8 social events, and most of those events are based around the community and having them be part of the event, so they feel like they're attached to it. Everything from the fun runs in the morning to the kids' try and the special try, which is for intellectually and physically handicapped kids. So again, there's that connection. And then you go to the environment, and yes, we work with stakeholders to make sure that our recycling, it used to be terrible, now we're up to about 90%. And we also have a partnership with Tourism Noosa, Trees for Tourism, where a portion of everyone's entry goes into trees. Now, we've got Noosa Triathlon forests and Ironman forests in the back of Noosa Hinterland. So we tick all those boxes to make sure that, the communities, the athletes, and our stakeholders want us back every year. Otherwise, again, that welcome mat could be taken from us.
It's really heartening to hear. So your participants have an expectation that that's what you should be doing, but you have a partnership with the local community about what that's delivering. So is that the same for all your events?
Yeah, very much so. So here we do Ironman Cairns. Now, Ironman Cairns, we were sort of asked to come here by the government approximately 10, 12 years ago. That event was when the Japanese tourism just collapsed, and occupancy rates up here were terrible and all the rest of it. So we came up and said, well, if we're going to put on something globally iconic, we're going to need to make this really big. And so part of that event is we closed the road from Cairns up to Port Douglas, and that's the bike ride. Fantastic. Now that, in the first year, I wasn't a liked guy. I mean, I was telling everyone in Cairns it's going to be great, but I'm closing these roads down for a lycra-cladded mammals, basically, to come up here. And that didn't go down well. But the community itself basically saw that the economic returns were there. We then started working on social events and a local charity group like Couch, and started raising funds there. And then environmental, we work with Tangara Blue, who's up here and based, and they're all about reducing waste out to the waterways and out to the reef. So it was, the community then started to embrace this event and make it such a good event, so to speak.
Fraser, the Torres Strait Islands, I'd argue, are one of the icon destinations in Australia, not just Queensland. I'm interested to understand your definition of sustainable tourism, and more particularly the expectations of the community and care for country type principles.
Thanks, bloke. Look, I'm from Mussig. It's a little island in the Torres Strait, and the tourism is pretty virgin up in the Straits, and which means massive potential. And where we are sitting right now, it's an undiscovered part, and most people in this room have never been to. And I think we're the other part of the Indigenous Australia. For us, I think it's about the 4 Ps: place, people, purpose, and prosperity. I think that symbiotic relationship is getting it right, that balance around sustainability. For most parts, a lot of Indigenous or ethnic cultures around the world, from their organic raw place, live sustainably. It's more so the things, the infrastructure, and all of those other parts that have come in that are creating a lot of the challenges, which we are having this global conversation around. How do we, lower carbon emission? And I think that's the marriage that we're trying to do, and to keeping that in the right threshold that we keep country and protect country. We look after the people, we give people purpose and meaning, which is such an important part of growth. And I think about, and the prosperity part, because we all have to live, we still have to pay, we still have to do everything what everyone else does. The price is the same, or more so. It costs so much more, and it's a low socioeconomic area, and this is one of our lowest hanging fruit that we have to really make a go of it, and the opportunities now. And I think having that nice dance between all of these 4 parts that I've just mentioned is going to be so critical. And we work closely with elders and traditional owners and communities about understanding the importance of keeping that ecosystem in its right balance, but not to say in a sustained way, but to grow and thrive as well in a sustained way.
So you've used the word balance and dance, and you've also said there's great opportunity. How do we manage then growth for tourism in your region?
I think, look, it's all about, I think the most important part for us is about controlled tourism, controlled cultural tourism.
Yeah.
If you go into any communities in the Torres Strait Island Regional Council, in that shire, you have to get permission to enter. So by default already there are control mechanisms in place. And you look at the numbers of community, size of community, infrastructure, capability, capacity, and it's all about, like I said, having that nice threshold that works well for each communities in its right context. And having that balance, it's pretty simple actually, and just working with partners and really pushing it to see how do we create an amazing ecosystem that captures all this part.
So I think we've warmed up. We can go for a deeper dive, into this issue. So let's come back to Amy. I'm mindful of the journey that you've been on for some time. Just hasn't happened overnight. I'm interested to understand where you've landed. So what are the next steps for the island? And just importantly, what are the lessons you'd like to share with us that you didn't get right? And I think from the audience's perspective, often you can learn more about the things that you didn't get right than the things that were successful. What could you share with us?
That is a great question. our sustainability journey for Lady Elliot Island definitely hasn't been an overnight success. It's been a long journey of over 15 years and something we've been committed to that entire time. If I go back a little bit in time, just to give everyone a little bit of history, when we took over the resort in 2005, the resort would run solely off diesel generators, which is not unusual for operations in remote locations. At that time, the diesel generators would burn around 550 litres of diesel fuel a day. That's about 200,000 litres of diesel fuel a year. So that is, one, financially costly for the resort, and I couldn't even imagine what it would be now with today's fuel prices. It also was not overly enjoyable for our guests with generators running 24/7, and it also was emitting around 550 tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. So at that point in time when we took over the resort, we knew that wasn't going to be the future of Lady Elliot Island. So all these years later, we now have around 1,100 panels on the island. We have 240 batteries as part of our energy battery storage capacity, and we can efficiently run the resort on 100% solar power in good weather conditions. So there is still a generator on the island that acts as redundancy or backup, because it'd be silly for us not to in such a remote location. But just that one initiative itself, I could talk for hours on challenges and successes that we've faced. But just to name just a few off the top of my head, obviously understanding and balancing the resort's energy capacity requirements and then obviously the output of the grid at the same time. Obviously understanding what is the most energy efficient appliances that are going to help reduce the draw on the grid at the same time, and the most energy efficient batteries used in a really harsh environment that's really humid and salty. But one of the biggest things we've learned along the way and acknowledging is the fact that this journey is not something we could have achieved alone. There has been so many silent supporters that have taken us along this journey with us. And one of them is definitely our team. It takes a village to do what we've done, and our team have themselves also learnt about these processes to tweak and refine the processes and systems that we have. So if there's one thing that I can leave today for everyone is not everything is going to work on your sustainability journey. There are going to be successes and there are definitely going to be failures along the way. But if you have the courage to give it a try and give it a go, you're definitely off to a great start on your sustainability journey.
So good point, good segue there, successes and failures. David, and I think every operator in this room would agree that sustainability is about trials and tribulations. You know, what's the word we often use? It's a journey, and we don't always get it right. I know you've worked really hard with your water and waste on site, and I know that energy hasn't been easy for you in the outback. What has worked for you, and where have you struggled?
Basically, well, we're really at the beginning of our sustainable journey. When we built, we did have to, build our own treatment plant and things like that. Initially, we were going to use that water in and around some gardens, but you've got to utilise it, or you can't utilise it within a certain distance of structures. So we were then restricted as to where we could use the water. So we expanded and we actually had another treatment plant. That plant actually is watering plants and gardens, and we're actually about to complete a transfer of the water into some storage, and then we're going to utilise that. One of the things, we're going to utilise it at our house, around our yard, but also we're looking at developing a flower farm. As such, and we're investigating the sort of things that we'd be able to do in that regard. We initially, I suppose when we did start, we didn't realise how eco-friendly the tents really were. We bought them, we did the deal. The footings, very low impact on the environment. The canvas is great. The decking is made from recycled rice husks, and yeah, so we're on a journey. We've got some solar in. That's been a little bit of an issue for us. We employed a guy initially. He's actually gone broke since, so that wasn't the greatest of decisions. And we are looking into and basically going alone in the similar circumstances as Amy, and we were having a chat last night, and that'll be a phone call, I'll be making, and to get some direction and help there, because you don't have to remake the wheel all the time.
So I think a key part about forums like this is that knowledge sharing is a critical part of what we're doing. So let's get connected with it. If you can sort of define for me what the issues were, let's reach out and see what other people are doing. We can share that with you. Geoff, I have no idea about the operational logistics associated with how you pull an event together, but I'm intrigued with what has worked for you in terms of the sustainability work that you're doing and what hasn't.
Look, again, the journey, it's step by step, it's all those kind of things. We definitely, our government contracts have a lot of sustainability measures in there. So we've taken sort of big steps forward, and we've had to go to sort of specialists in that field. So, our recycling partners. So we used to have 2 bins. Now we've got 5 recycling streams at every single event that we do. We work with local Indigenous groups. We work with charity groups and charity partners to sort of see how we can better, raise funds at events, and that's worked really successfully because we were terrible at it. Yeah. And working with those groups has gone from $100,000 to 1.2 at Noosa, so to speak. But it's about inspiring your team as well. My younger ones in my team, they are fantastic, and they look for little things all the time. And we've changed from diesel light generators to solar light generators. We've got rid of zip ties and used reusable toggles, and we've all these kind of little things that we keep on sort of using. There is failures, there is good parts and bad parts, but it's all about that. And the future is very much going to be more of that. And you're going to have to, and again I harp on it's economic, social, and environmental, because after COVID we saw a lot of events fall over, and we're still seeing events fall over now, and it's for different reasons. It's not just economics. I saw the Fun Trail, whatever, it's like 25, 30 years old. They couldn't raise funds anymore, so they stopped. The V8 supercars in Newcastle, that got cancelled because the local community decided it was an inconvenience. We didn't want this anymore. So again, all those elements need to be taken care of from an event perspective. Otherwise, and you need to keep evolving all the time and looking for ways to improve. And that's just the future that's going forward. You've got to be relative to the company that you're in, the communities you're in.
So Fraser, you're still building your platform moving forward. So this is a great discussion for you. I'm really interested to understand what success would look like for you in the community, but more particularly your views on eco-economics.
Thanks, Stu. Look, I think I'm going to just say 3 words I think underpins everything that we have to do to see what I think success is. Courageous, visionary leadership, full stop. Nothing less than that is required, and I think that's a call for everyone in this room. We have to push the envelope and build a plane on the way down. We have to do that, and where we sit in Torres Strait is we're the furthest, shire away from our capital city. We're on the other side. We're the closest to 2 other countries, Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, and there's a bit of context. So therefore, we have to be more resourceful. We're not big, and it places us in a position to think differently and to really squeeze the juices out and be innovative, be creative, and ask different questions. And I think fundamentally, and I've said to Stu about this, I've got this vision about creating Australia's flagship regional economic zone. And I played with the word economics by making the first part economic as much as possible. And I think learning from what Amy and them have done, there's already a blueprint. I'm sure there's heaps other anecdotal, proof around, social proof all over, scattered all over the world. And it's about taking that, because I think a big part of our sustainability part is not so much our cultural life, but because we still have to live, we need infrastructure. We need to produce water, we need energy. There's still diesel power generation. And all this part needs to shift. And I think our question is, we need policies to drive investment that are going to be green and eco investment, the types of houses that we build. How do we produce water, energy, and all of those things? And how do we create this region that actually becomes a flagship, that we can import this around the world, what we've done there, to other places. And there are learnings, I guess, we can have, because we have, when I think about it, we have all these little communities. I've always looked at it as petri dishes that you can test and have really tight learning loops, in each community, and try different concepts, because you can, because it's small, and you can have a massive impact. And I think that's the part I really would like to see, because I think it brings hope, that we don't only talk about the challenges we face as small communities, low-lying island communities that are facing, sea level rise and inundation and all the other aspects of climate impacts, but it's also the fact that, if we do this, we can lead, we can be the catalyst to actually lead in the world about how to make a difference. Our communities, cities, shires, and our state can make a difference. And I think that's the dream. And I hope before 2032, we'll see a more mature model that's going to be presented to the world that can, really elevate. Not only, it's not our story. This is a Queensland and an Australian story. This is all of us, because everything we do as passionate people about the climate affects everyone else. And when you have little places like that sits, amazing place that sits in little, in this part of the world, we all can contribute. And I'm also putting it out there for anyone who wants to try something different, to really have a pilot and have a go and to test some stuff. Please come and have a yarn. Thanks.
So the power of that is you've got to have a dream, you need a really strong vision, and we've got to be courageous, and it's got to provide leadership, and it becomes a catalyst, just like all of you were for other people in terms of moving forward. Now, Gillian, does that mean we've got 5? Is that the sort of nod? Yes? All right, so we did have, I'll finish, I guess, with perhaps for each of my panellists to give us a take-home message. There was a question up on screen, and what it simply said was, if I'm an operator, where do I start this journey moving forward? But I think if we go for each of our panellists, give me the take-home message. I mean, you started out with some pretty good messages there, Amy. What am I taking home from this afternoon from this forum?
I think for me, I put on my marketing hat when I talk about sustainability sometimes as well. And I like to say to wear your sustainability heart on your sleeve. So wherever possible, embed sustainability conversations into your everyday life, whether that be like us on Lady Elliot, we have touch points all throughout the resort through tours, presentations, communication strategies, things like that. Maybe it's social media that you want to get your messages across. Whatever it may be, don't be afraid to tell your story, and don't be afraid to share your successes and also your challenges and your failures that you've faced along the way, because I think transparency is what's going to bring your audiences closer to you on this journey with you, and they much more respect businesses that are more prepared to basically share those challenges and successes as well.
David?
I think just about where we are, I suppose, to a certain extent, opening in COVID and at the time, the bank wasn't going to lend us the amount of money they initially promised us. So part of where we are is now we were very much a little bit concerned about things economically, but moving forward, it's I suppose it's a bit like going to the gym and things like that. You do it in we're on the move in little steps. You drop into the gym and someone tells you you got to do 2 hours on that and eat lettuce for the next 2 weeks. It's probably not going to work. So we're taking it in little bites and chew our way through, and just ensure we've basically got no plastic in any of our services, where it's at a minimal. Our granolas we're actually making ourselves now a lot. Our fruit compotes and berries and that sort of thing, we do that ourselves. And at the moment, it's going into jars, which we're washing up obviously, but then the water's being treated, and we're going to utilise that water. So I think from my perspective, I've never been a warrior as such, but the environment's an important thing and we've just got to look after it. And if we all do the best we can along those lines, then it's going to be all right.
Geoff.
Basically, yeah, look, it is a journey, it's small steps, it's all those kind of things, and yes, we're becoming plastic free, and yes, we're recycling, and yes, we're doing all those things, but from an event perspective, it's all about community. The community is going to judge us on whether we stay or go. And from that perspective, you've got to engage with the community, get them on board, because we can run really good events, but it's the community that basically takes that event from being really good to exceptional. And I say this for the Cairns community, for Ironman Cairns. They're the ones that make it special when the athlete turns up to the hotel or to the cafe and makes their experience really cool. They're the ones that basically are on the finish line and out on the course and cheering and creating such an atmosphere that's second to none. And that is what, you know, the community does for us. And that's why Ironman Cairns became the #1 Ironman on the globe last year in 22. So it's that really works.
Fraser.
I'm not in the tourism business, guys. I'm in the people business, full stop. And I want to read something I wrote to a journalist a couple of years ago, and I wanted them to capture what it means to me, what this sector, this medium of tourism means to me. And this is through the lens of cultural tourism, sustainable cultural tourism. The essence of what we're facilitating is the very fabric of what it means to be human. You see, my friends, humanity is seeking to connect at a deeper, fundamental level, a level of being loved and accepted, of being connected to a family that you never had, of friendship and mateship, with a sense of belonging that's deeper than the boundaries of our culture, our ethnicity, our organizational tribe, our sporting tribes, our fashion tribes, and our socio-economic tribes. You see, these things come and go, but humans are always here. And having a deep sense of purpose, relevance, and significance is so important if humanity is going to solve some of our greatest challenges in the coming decades. Change is not an event, it's a process, John Maxwell. The sound of our voice up in the Strait is one of an invitation. It's a calling for humans to come together and adapt to the challenges we face, whether it be cultural, environmental, economical, geopolitical, just to name a few. See, the only way we can solve it is by coming together. Controlled, sustainable cultural tourism is not only an amazing experience of sharing and learning with an economic spin-off. No, my friends, it is the very medium that will facilitate the process of change. It invites humans to first seek to understand, then to be understood, to share our hopes and dreams, our vulnerabilities and our strengths. And therefore, in this space, we find the place of empathy, and through compassion, build our future course. And I think that's the DNA of what tourism is.
Thank you. Can you thank my 4 panellists, please? Fraser Nye, Geoff Myers, David Neal, and Amy Gash. Thanks, guys.